At least two coaches will lose their job out of the SEC this year as we head into the 2024 college football season, one of which will lose their job in season. We are going to give you value plays, shortest odds for coaches to get fired in 2024. What I want to do first, though, Lance Taylor here at YLose Campus, YLoseCampus.com/Lance. Daily packages $49, weekly $99, monthly $299. We're going to continue to pump out content, getting you guys ready for college football 2024. I want to go back to 2023. We had this exact list, different names on the list, some of the names the same, a year ago in July. And 10 guys were on this list. 5 survived, 4 were fired, and 1, in my opinion, got a better job. So we'll start with the 2023 coaches. Shortest odds last year to lose their job, Neil Brown, West Virginia, plus 250. So $100 pays you $250. If he would have lost his job, there was a 29% chance that he was going to get bounced out of Morgantown. He had a stellar final 3 years at Troy, 31-8. I had an opportunity to cover him at Troy. He came in studio with us. He was on our show multiple times. Very likable guy. Just wasn't getting it done at West Virginia. Now, to me, he was doing an average job, not great. The expectations are probably more than they should be in Morgantown. This is not going to be a Rich Rodriguez or Don Neyland West Virginia team that has an opportunity to win national championships. I just don't think the program's there anymore in the Big 12. But you look at his first 4 years, 5 wins, 6 wins, 6 wins, then 5 wins. All the pressure was on this guy. I think there were a lot of people that wanted him out. Good for Neil Brown. Pulls a 9-4, 6-3 in conference. And he decides to take a $400,000 pay cut over the next couple of years to pay his assistants because he knows he's playing the long-term game here. I love me some Neil Brown. He survived. Dino Babers, next shortest odds. He was 4-1, 20% chance of losing his job. Former Hawaii running back. Really 2 good years at Bowling Green, which parlayed him in to getting the Syracuse job. 8-6, then 10-3, gets the Syracuse job. Had that one really good year in 2018. They go 10-3. And then in 2022, it was really surprising. He was on a hot seat because they were 7-6. I don't know what the expectation is for the Orange. He goes 5-6. Guess what? He loses his job. He winds up, he's now the offensive coordinator at Arizona under Brian Brennan. Jeff Hafley from Boston College. And this is one of those guys that I think actually got a better job, was on the hot seat coming into last year. He was 6-1 to lose his job, a 14% chance of losing his job. He built his reputation as an elite recruiter in Columbus at Ohio State as a co-defensive coordinator. He gets the BC job, wins 6 games, not bad, wins 6 games again, but then he dips down to 3-9. That's when he was on the hot seat at 6-1 to lose his job a year ago. He goes 7-6. What does he do? Sayonara. He gets offered the defense coordinator job for the Green Bay Packers. He upgrades. I do think the defensive coordinator for the Packers, a team that will compete in the NFC this year, is a much better spot than being the head coach at BC. Tom Allen was on this list, former Indiana coach. He was 6-1, 14% chance to lose his job. 7 seasons in Bloomington, 5 losing seasons. Very likable guy. A guy that knows defense extremely well. The offense was not a good product. 2020 and 2021 were good years, his 2 winning seasons, but 4-8, 3-9, and then 1-8 in the Big Ten this year. Gets him fired. He lands on his feet. Defensive coordinator for Penn State. Danny Gonzalez, you probably don't know this name. You probably shouldn't. The former head coach at New Mexico. He was 8-1 to lose his job, an 11% chance. 2-5, 3-9, 2-10. Has his best year in Albuquerque at 4-8, but he gets fired. He was out. Justin Wilcox, very difficult job. You go back to the 70s, Cal was really good job, very competitive. You go back to Jeff Tedford early on with the Aaron Rodgers and Marshawn Lynch and Deshaun Jackson days. It was a good program. They have since taken on a lot of water. And when you watch Justin Wilcox, I've always said this, he seems like the moments aren't too big. He looks the part as a head coach on the sideline. I'm a little surprised that he hasn't done his best because he's been with some big-time programs as defense coordinator. A little surprised he hasn't done his best to escape and get out of Berkeley. He was at 12-1 last year to get fired, an 8% chance of losing his job. He's been there 7 years, 36-43, 21-37 in the Pac-12. To me, that's kind of a solid job in Berkeley. Now they go to the ACC, 4-8 in 2022, bounces back with a 6-7, going to a bowl last year. Francisco Mendoza, fun quarterback to watch. So I think Cal's going to be one of these teams. I don't think they're going to have a great year this year, but I think they beat somebody they're not supposed to. Really interesting on this list last year was Ryan Silverfield. the head coach for Memphis. He was at 18-1, an 8% chance of losing his job, the 7th shortest odds in college football. 21-16 in his first 3 seasons in Memphis. Not good enough for the Tigers. We have seen this team be really good under some other coaches. And, they're one of the Group 5 favorites now. But all this pressure on him last year, he goes 10-3. Now Seth Hennigan comes back at quarterback. Tremendous year last year, completing over 66% of his passes, almost 3,900 passing yards, 32 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. They are one of the Group 5 favorites to make the college football playoffs. So really nice story there for Silverfield, but he's going to have to back it up this year. But he is squarely off the hot seat. Going into last year, I would have told you this guy was going to be fired if the buyout wasn't so massive. Jimbo Fisher. He was 20-1, and it was because of that buyout, only a 5% chance to lose his job. Year 1, he signed that 10-year, $75 million contract after winning a national championship in Tallahassee. I said when he got the job, I don't think there's any chance he wins a national championship at A&M with how competitive the SEC is. Go back to 2013. He had a generational player in Jameis Winston. Since then, it's been okay. It's just not good enough for making $7.5 to $9 million a year, and that's the raise he ultimately got. 9-4, 8-5, 9-1 his best season. The 10-game SEC schedule in COVID. Then 8-4, that put him on the hot seat. It starts heating up. Then 5-7 in 2022. That's when they had the odds at 20 plus or 20-1 to lose his job, at 5% to lose his job. And what does he do last year? He goes 6-4 and he gets fired 10 games into the season. Nobody thought he was going to lose his job because the buyout was $77.5 million. Guess what? A&M fans said, middle finger. The administration didn't care. They've got the money. Oil money goes a long way. Largest buyout in college football history. They pay it. He's out. He's got not 1 but 2 ranches. And I don't think we'll see Jimbo Fisher back in college. Mike Bloomgren was also on this list at 20-1, 5% chance to lose his job. If you don't know who he is, you really shouldn't. He's the Rice head coach. He goes 2-11 in year 1, 3-9, 2-3 in 2020, 4-8, 5-8. Then he has his best season last year, bowl eligible at 6-7. He survives. And then finally, Brent Venables was on this list in year 2 at Oklahoma. I never thought he was going to lose his job. He seemed a little overwhelmed in year 1, but he goes from 6-7 to 10-3. So really good job with Dylan Gabriel. And now what does he do? Your Heisman favorite, Dylan Gabriel, he ships him off and brings in a new starter in Jackson Arnold, who I think will be tremendous, probably not as good as Dylan Gabriel. Their schedule is brutal, so not a lot of expectation for Oklahoma this year, but great job out of Brent Venables really bouncing back in year 2. So now we're taking a look at 2024 shortest odds, and I am going to give you some plays here at YLose campus, and I think we're getting some value here, and I'm going to go through some buyouts and scenarios and reasons that I think you could actually purchase some of these tickets, wager online, and steal you some money. It's never fun pulling for a coach to lose their job, but remember this, these head coaches have massive buyouts. Pay me to go home and sit on the couch for $77 million. Pay me any amount of these buyouts to go home. The guys you feel sorry for are the assistant coaches who have to uproot their families and go out and scramble and try to find another job. Shortest odds coming into 2024. We start first in the SEC, and I think it is a no-brainer. It's Billy Napier. He is 4-1. I think you're getting value here. Couple of problems, though. He is the 6th head coach in Gainesville since Steve Spurrier. He's the 4th coach in the last 13 years. The other side of this, his biggest win as Florida's head coach was week 1 of his tenure against Utah back in 2022, where they knock off Cam Rising. Cam Rising, maybe the worst throw of his career, where they were going to ultimately win that game. But they go 6-7 in year 1, then 5-7 last year. They're 11-14 overall under Billy Napier. They're 6-10 in the SEC. There's a good chance when you look at the schedule, I believe going into this season, this is the most difficult schedule in the history of college football going into a season on paper. I think they're only going to be favored in 4 games. So this is Florida we're talking about, by the way. National championship under Steve Spurrier. Multiple national championships under Urban Meyer. And now we're talking about 6 wins to 5 wins to possibly 3 or 4 wins this year. I think he will lose his job. The problem here is there's more than $25 million left on the buyout. But if I'm a Florida fan, all I do is point to the administration and say, look what A&M did. They paid $77.5 million. We've been there. We've won championships. A&M has done absolutely nothing. My verdict, he's gone. 4-1, I think you're getting value. I'm going to save the next one because I think this is going to be your in-season guy, and I'm going to give you a little wrinkle on why this is. So I think you will find this really, really interesting when we get to this. The next guy on the list, though, that we're going to take a look at, Mario Cristobal. And Mario Cristobal right now, 6-1. I think Cristobal is a good coach. I don't think he's a great coach. You go back to his Oregon days, and to me, that was a really stable situation. He wins 10 games in one season, wins 12 games in another season, multiple Pac-12 conference championships. Takes the Miami job, former Miami player, wanted to get back home. It was no secret that Mario Cristobal, once he got into coaching, really, really coveted that job. And once he got offered it, he's got some friends that are big boosters. He's making $8 million a year. Here's what's really interesting. Not only the 5-7, 7-6, there have been 19 conference championship games in the ACC. When Miami joined this conference, I just remember how dominant Miami was just a few years before. And I really believed every 2 or 3 years in the ACC, Miami would be able to find their way to the conference championship game. We've had 12 different ACC teams play for a conference championship. Miami has only had one appearance in this game. So the reason I'm telling you this is really it's been a terrible, terrible track record for former Miami coaches. But I think with what Mario Cristobal has gotten through the transfer portal, former Pac-12 coach, gets Cam Ward out of Pullman, tremendous at Washington State. Damian Martinez, great running back, plucks him out of Corvallis. They're paying these guys a lot of money, so there's a big expectation. But I think Miami's going to be really good this year. And I'm talking 10-win good and a possibility of winning an ACC championship and getting to a college football playoff. I think he survives in this spot. I would actually back Mario Cristobal. I don't think he's going anywhere. Next guy we're going to look at, Dave Aranda. Very interesting here. Well-respected defensive coordinator from Wisconsin to LSU. Takes over the Baylor job. Bad first season at 2-7. And then what does he do in year two? Most really good coaches bounce back and have a tremendous year two. He was 12-2. They knock off Oklahoma State to win the Big 12 championship. They keep Oklahoma State out of a college football playoff, and they finish in the polls at number 5. Tremendous second year for Dave Aranda. But then they slip. 6-7 follows that up, and then last year 3-9. He's only making $3 million, but since that 12-2, he's 9-16. They're probably going to be an underdog in 7 games when you look at the schedule. So let's just say that they win 4 or 5 games. It is an improvement over 2023, but the buyout is upwards of $20 million. And I just don't think Baylor, where they are financially, and I know it's a private school, I just don't think that they've got the money to pay Dave Aranda $20 million. So I actually think he will survive this year unless it's a disaster like a 2-10 type year. Clark Lee, we go back to the SEC. I don't know what the expectations are at Vanderbilt. They should be nothing. Nobody shows up at the games. They've got cranes there, construction work all the time. Nobody wins there. Problem for Clark Lee is he's 8-1 to lose his job, but he goes 2-10 in year one, normal Vanderbilt year. Then he goes 5-7. He gets a contract extension after that 2022 season, going 5-7. 3-year extension through 2029. That was the last time he won an SEC game. They go 2-10 last year. He is now 2-22 in 3 years in the SEC. That is awful. He's making $3+ million a year. I just don't know what the expectation is. And I don't know who you get in to take this job. Now, Nashville's a fantastic city. You're in the biggest brand in college football in the SEC, but it's an impossible place to win. I think Clark Lee will survive this year. I don't think it really matters. If he was to go 1-11, maybe he doesn't win an SEC game again. Maybe he's out. Next coach on this list, Kalani Sitake. I'm a big fan of. I like Sitake a lot. Kalani Sitake right now, the odds are 10-1 to lose his job. He's coming up on 9 years, and that's been a quiet almost decade in Provo. 6 of 8 years, he's had winning years, including, if we go back to 2020, 11 wins there, 2021, 10 wins there, but he was 5-7 last year. Year one in the Big 12, to me, a little transition. Utah had some troubles early on, TCU, when they were making transitions into Power 5 conferences. A little different from BYU being an independent before, but when you start to look at this schedule is going to be tough. And to me, I think the Big 12 is going to be much better than advertised. I think they might only be favored in 4 games. But let's say that they sneak in 5 wins from 5-7 to 5-7. He signed a contract extension back in 2021. I think he survives here because the administration loves him, former player at BYU, and his players absolutely love him. So I think Sitake sticks, and I think he is going to be fine in this spot. Ryan Day, this one is fascinating to me because we're talking about a guy that is 56-8 in his career as a head coach at Ohio State. He is 12-1 to lose his job. The problem is 3 straight losses to Michigan. We all know that. He's coming off 12-1. Who in the hell comes off at 12-1 and you're on a hot seat to lose your game? He's making $10 million a year. When you really start to dissect this, and this is what happens when you coach a brand like Ohio State and you've yet to win a national championship, they start to look, okay, we've lost to our rival 3 years in a row. They just won the national championship. We're paying you $10 million. Let's really start to break this down. 56-8. He's coached 7 times against top 5 teams. Guess what his record is? He is 1-6 against top 5s. But when you really start to break down these losses, he's got a loss in a meaningless bowl game last year to Missouri. We had Missouri, by the way, plus points. He lost to Oregon in the regular season, which is arguably his worst loss in Columbus. He lost to Clemson in the semifinals of college football playoff. Lost to Georgia in the semifinals of college football playoff, a game they should have won, shouldn't have gotten conservative. And that thing, if it plays out differently, like the narrative is so different with college football because Kirby never gets that first win. Ryan Day's got one, so we're not even having this conversation. But they ultimately lose to Georgia. Alabama, they lost in the 2020 national championship, wasn't close. And the big problem is you've lost 3 consecutive times now to Michigan. The buyout, though, the report last year was $46 million. And I know the reports also are that Ohio State has spent nearly $30 million this offseason to bring in portal guys and guys on that staff like Chip Kelly to win a national championship. So, if Ryan Day was to go 9-3, lose to Michigan, and somehow miss the college football playoff, maybe they pony that money up. But I think Ryan Day's a hell of a coach, and I don't think he goes anywhere. Another coach that I like on this list, at 12-1, number 8 on the list, Pat Narduzzi. Now, he's going into year 10 at Pittsburgh. I don't know what the expectation should be for Pittsburgh. I just go back to 2021. He wins the ACC, wins 11 games, follows that up. By the way, has a Heisman finalist in Kenny Pickett, follows it up in 2022 with 9 wins. Now, terrible year last year at 3-9. He's making almost $6 million a year, but his contract is through 2030. And I don't know, Pittsburgh, how good of a job is this? What should the realistic expectation be? I just don't think you can fire a coach that had 20 combined wins going into last year in a 2-year span, and then he has a bad 3-9. Now, if he was to go 2-10, all bets are off. I don't think that's going to happen, though. I don't think Pat Narduzzi loses his job. Lincoln Riley, a guy that I follow, being a USC fan, really excited when he got hired for this job. Reports were he's making $10 million a year. Year 1 wasn't bad. Now, to me, it was kind of smoke and mirrors. They won 11 games. They play Utah for the Pac-12 championship. They lose that game. Caleb Williams ultimately wins a Heisman Trophy. The defense was awful. I said this last year at this time. It can't get any worse. It did. They dropped down to 8-5. Even with Caleb Williams, defense was awful. So now he's 19-8 in 2 years. But you go back to his tenure at Oklahoma, 55-10, multiple Heisman Trophy winners, went to the college football playoff 3 or 4 times. I don't know if this number is right. USC is one of these private institutions. It's been bounced out there. I don't know how it's possible. But the number they say on a buyout is $88 million for Lincoln Riley. If, in fact, that is true, there is zero chance USC would ever pay that. Something to look out for Lincoln Riley, though. If he was to get an NFL offer, with pressure really mounting, would he take off and take that job? My guess is if they paid him around the $10 million, he probably would. Deion Sanders is on this list. Now, the big story in college football in September of last year was Deion Sanders in Colorado in that 3-0 start. And after they started 2-0, I started fading this team. And it ultimately worked out for me at the end of last year. By the way, YLose.com, YLose/Lance. Daily packages, $49, weekly $99, monthly $299. We're going to crush it in college football for you this year. But they start out 3-0, and then they go 1-8 down the stretch. They end up 4-8. They were the story of college football. Prime is a polarizing guy. He is a guy that he brings a ton of attention, a ton of eyeballs. The ratings for these Colorado games have been incredible. He's making $5.5 million a year. He's got 75% remaining on that contract. His buyout reports are close to $20 million. Prime is a fun guy to listen to. I just don't know how in he is going to be once Shedeur and Shiloh Sanders, his kids, go on to the NFL. And that's going to be after this season. And by the way, I don't think it's going to be a very good season for Colorado. Again, Colorado is one of these schools in Boulder. They won a national championship in 1991, which was amazing. That's never going to happen again. Some people think they're going to be better. I think they're going to be about the same. The offensive line was awful for whatever reason. If Shedeur Sanders, who was sacked 52 times last year, if he's able to stay upright, they've got shots because he's that good of a player. If they were to lose him, they are dead in the water. I think what happens here is it's another 3-4 win season in Boulder, and I think Deion taps out, and I think he follows his kids out of Boulder. That's just my guess. I don't think they would fire him because, again, he does generate ratings, and he would be owed close to $20 million, which I know Colorado doesn't have. Now, here's your best bet. Now, I do think going back, Billy Napier at 4-1, there is no way. Another buyout is pretty massive. Schools don't like to pay these buyouts. That was unprecedented what Texas A&M did with Jimbo Fisher last year. But I still think you're getting value with Billy Napier based on that schedule. I mean, if they were to go 6-6, he is going to be up for SEC Coach of the Year. And I'm not even joking when I say that. That schedule is that difficult. But I think he is going to lose his job. But here is your value play. And I'm going to give you an inside angle on why this is a winner at 5-1. So anywhere you can get a return on your investment at 5-1, run, don't walk. And that's what you're getting with Sam Pittman. So Sam Pittman is one of these really likable guys. I think he would be awesome to sit down with and drink a cold beer with. He is going to be an incredible grandfather if he's not already. Again, making $6 million a year. When he was hired in December of 2019, Arkansas fans were like, who in the hell is this? And then you started to hear stories. He was former offensive line coach at Georgia under Kirby Smart. The guy can recruit, one of the best offensive line coaches out there. So I think Arkansas fans started to get a little excited. So in year one, he goes 3-7. And I know a lot of you guys probably didn't follow Arkansas games, but I watched a lot of them in that COVID season. That 3-7 really should have been 5-5. There was a controversial ending in Jordan-Hare against Auburn where they were completely robbed of that game. I forgot the other game where they really were on the wrong side of a bad bounce. They could have easily been 5-5 in a really difficult 10-game SEC schedule. So I think Arkansas fans were really optimistic. What does he do in year two? He goes 9-4. They host Texas and whip the shit out of the Longhorns. And I think after those 2 years, Arkansas fans are like, damn, we have found the next best coach since Bobby Petrino. Speaking of Bobby Petrino, we'll get to him in a second because he is back in Fayetteville. Then after the 9-4, 7-6. To me, 7-6, still solid in Fayetteville. Very difficult job. Then 4-8. And now going into year 5, he is on a major hot seat, sitting there at 5-1 to lose his job. Now, I look at this situation, and I'm like, I remember Chad Morris the 2 seasons before you hired Sam Pittman. He was 4-18, 0-14 in the SEC. Did not win a conference game. I know Sam Pittman's only 11-23. They're probably only going to be favored in 4 games. Here's what you look at. 2 things. Bobby Petrino, we live in an amazing world where this guy was having an affair with one of the staffers, lied to his bosses, got in the motorcycle wreck with her. At least that was the report. Reports were her fiance also whipped his ass. We don't know what's true, what's false. We do know that he was shamed out of Fayetteville. He circles back. Now he gets rehired as the offensive coordinator. Nobody will doubt the offensive genius that Bobby Petrino is. This is a guy that had them up 14-0 against one of the best regular season teams we've ever seen. Final week of the 2011 regular season against number 1 LSU. They were number 3 at that time. It was LSU 1, Alabama 2, Arkansas 3. If they hold on and beat LSU, they're playing for a national championship. They lose that game. Bobby Petrino gets in all the trouble. The rest is history, but now he's back in Fayetteville. I have talked to people at SEC Media Days just a couple of weeks ago. They believe Bobby Petrino is worth 2 or 3 wins for Sam Pittman. Maybe that keeps him. But here is the most important thing to look at, and this is all going to tie together. And I'm telling you, 5-1. And when I bet it myself, I don't wager on a lot of things. I used to spray the board, and I would bet on absolutely anything, and especially when bourbon was involved. But I really sit back, and I have got to get a calculated advantage. And here's where that advantage is for you. If Arkansas, in their clause, if he is to drop below 500 at any point in his career as the head coach in Fayetteville, the buyout drops down. It's a discounted buyout, and it's escalated. It drops down to $4 million. So I think what you're going to see with this difficult schedule this year, and with Bobby Petrino on this staff, I think Sam Pittman, once he drops below that 500 mark, and that could be as early as I think 4 or 5 games into the season, I think they're going to trigger that clause. I think they're going to buy him out, fire him for $4 million. They're going to pay him $4 million to go away. Bobby Petrino will then be elevated to the interim coach, and they will give him an opportunity to see how that works out the final 2/3 of the season. And what a world we live in. Bobby Petrino, from being shamed out of Fayetteville on that motorcycle to possibly being the head coach in Fayetteville in 2025. I think that's the way it's going to play out. I think this is the best value out there when you're looking at coaches getting fired. I know it's difficult to pull for somebody to lose their job, but again, pay me $4 million to go lay on the couch. I'll do it tomorrow. I think that's what happens with Sam Pittman. Again, if you want all the winners throughout college football, very simple. YLose.com/Lance. You're going to get all the plays here at YLose campus. Dailies $49, weeklies $99, monthlies $299. We will continue to give you podcasts. We're going to roll these out, give you content, and give you different things that you can wager on leading up into the college football season. So stay tuned, like and subscribe this channel. But I'm telling you, Sam Pittman at 5-1 is massive value for you guys.